Hello guys, thanks again for tuning in. My name is Andrew Guy Dola, and this is Lost Memories, Episode 2. It's been called the New York City of Canada. Toronto, home to 3 major sports teams, monuments, film festivals, Carabana, Yonge Street, Nathan Phillips Square, and the CNE, the Canadian National Exhibition, the country's largest community event, an 18-day fair that attracts 1.5 million people a year and generates almost $100 million for the T-Dot. The CNE consists of exhibits, live entertainment, shopping, a large carnival, rides, food vendors, and the Canadian International Airshow. Aircrafts from Canada and the United States, as well as other countries, show off their machines and perform in the skies over Lake Ontario. This here is the Nimrod Mr2, a 4-engine Royal Air Force British Warplane that was used for reconnaissance missions. With a length of 127 feet and a wingspan of 115, this bird had a max speed of about 475 miles per hour. It was state-of-the-art technology, equipped with radar, magnetic and acoustic detection, torpedoes, bombs, and Sidewinder defense missiles. And on September 2nd, 1995, while performing in front of thousands of spectators at the Toronto Air Show, it fell out of the sky. What was supposed to be a fun-filled day ended up in tragedy. 7 men would lose their lives this day, and many people that saw the incident became scarred and traumatized. One spectator had said that the impact from the crash of the water created an extremely low-pitched boom, and a moment later you could physically feel the impact in the air of the crash, as though you were hit by a small shockwave. The next day, the crash of the Nimrod would make the paper and news networks. Many questions and concerns began to arise, and many people wanted answers. How does one of the most state-of-the-art military aircrafts plunge into Lake Ontario? A day after the crash, a team of experts from the Royal Air Force would fly to Canada to try to help determine the cause of the Nimrod crash. At the same time, Canadian authorities would be launching an inquiry into the crash themselves. The Royal Air Force would be focusing on a number of possibilities. These include things like bird strikes, mechanical problems, control malfunctions, and pilot error. A spokesperson said bird strikes were a regular occurrence, which little could be done, and the jet coped badly with them. In 1980, the pilot and co-pilot of a Nimrod were killed when it crashed into a dense forest only 1 mile from the Royal Air Force Kinloss after hitting a flock of birds during takeoff. Determining the cause of the air show crash, however, would be challenging, but the Canadian authorities had one thing going for them. The incident was seen by thousands of spectators, and the television video footage would also be a great assistance in investigating into the crash. Canadian authorities were trying to track down any amateur video of the tragedy. Ultimately, the official inquiry would conclude that pilot error was to blame. 31-year-old Lieutenant Dom Gilbert altered a display maneuver that would cause the jet engines to stall at a height from which recovery was not possible. Basically, the plane performs a fly pass of the crowd at 300 feet, performs 2 360-degree turns and 2 banking turns. As it slowly ascended, however, it began to stall. It became flatter and flatter. The Nimrod eventually does an ugly pivot on its axis when it had reached about 500 feet. It rolled over and dropped towards the lake and hit the water at more than 230 miles per hour. What's crazy is that many of these moves performed by the Nimrod were nothing out of the ordinary. By this time, the plane had been performing in the air show for over a decade. These pilots were specifically selected and trained and underwent rigorous supervised practice flights. A spokesperson for the Royal Air Force had said, "We've been using the 4.5-minute display for the last 20 years. It's not a taxing sequence. It's relatively straightforward. So what made this straightforward routine go wrong?" The Toronto Air Show has been around for quite some time, since 1946 in fact, and this disaster was far from the first to occur. People come to watch planes do extraordinary things, and the pilots just want to put on a good show for people. It was a miracle this didn't occur on land or near all the spectators, and it's also fortunate no one on the water got hurt either, being that there were hundreds of sailors and pleasure boaters out there. In fact, many of the boaters believe that the pilot deliberately tried to avoid them, in turn saving lives. The Nimrod sank almost immediately, but divers quickly found the wreckage, which had been broken up into 4 main sections and was laying in about 70 feet of water. This was only 2 kilometers south of Ontario Place, if you can believe that. A rescue mission was set out in motion immediately, but it was unsuccessful. Police and military ended up dropping the DART, Deep Access Remote Television, a submersible device equipped with sonar and 2 cameras. The images from the camera would aid the rescue team in recovering debris of the plane and the bodies of the 7 men. It's hard to believe that it's almost been 24 years since the disaster. For most people, it's probably just another lost memory, but for me, I remember it very well. You see, on September 2nd, 1995, I was at the CNE in Toronto. Being a 9-year-old, it was a pretty scary turn of events, but I was there. It's just another moment in time, and if you ever visit the Toronto Aerospace Museum and come across this piece of metal, you're looking at the tail from the Nimrod. It's on display in part of its memorial at the museum. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the video.